Okay.
Okay.
You right to go?
Yeah, I've just got to read the question. Hold on. Oh, so your first question today, Mark, is from Jackie. She says that she has a usually forward-moving mare who will occasionally stop and refuse to move anywhere, especially if she's anxious or something. So she might refuse to leave the arena. How would you handle this, please?
Often cases, forward-moving horses, it's very hard to sort of, work out the amount of forward-moving that your horse, but a lot of forward-moving horses can be moving forward because of a certain amount of anxiety. Some are just, quite free and they destinate a bit. But usually the really forward horses have a certain amount of anxiety because they're going at a speed to get somewhere. So not always do they have a lot of confidence. So what happens is, they might get out and go, oh, crikey, this is a bit too much information. I can't deal with this. And then they would start to, have their thoughts more closer on their most, on their safe place, like where they left or something like that. So, or on the other horses or the stable. So when they do this, you've got to think, okay, am I trying to push my horse out and is it freezing? Is it freezing because there's too much information out there? So they've got all these things to look at. It's nervous. So they're casting their thoughts behind them back to safety, or they're just a little overwhelmed with where they're going, or, just the pressure's too great and they're starting to go into that freeze. So in most cases, I would tend to pick up a rein and just redirect them and just let them relax and let them go at their own speed. And like there's a few videos that I have about, just using the reins to just steer a horse until it starts to think in a new direction and let go of an old direction. But basically, in most cases, horses freeze because we're wanting to point them in a direction that they don't want to go and their thoughts are somewhere else. So I think what you've got to look at in yourself and your own riding is, am I pointing my horse in a direction and making it go somewhere? Or am I letting it just sort of drift a little and finding out exactly where your horse is wanting to go? So when you loosen up on the reins and loosen up your legs, the horse is going to start to drift back to where it wants to go. So, and in most cases, just allowing them to go where they want to go will unfreeze them, because they're just going to turn around and go, well, this is too much for me, I'm going to turn back here. So you kind of got to allow that to happen a little bit and let them go back so you can get the flow again. And then they're going towards their thoughts again. And then you can redirect them and say, okay, well, that's not available back there, but come over here. And then just use those reins to just redirect them until they start to, start to let go of that, the thought behind them, or they start to sort of, think about what's in front of them. Because as you're steering them, what's happening is, they might have one eye on, two eyes on, another eye on, and they're just sort of weaving. And then they might start to think away again and start to go, well, I might try and go over there. So I think, really to sum it up is you're going, okay, well, I'm not going to push you with my legs and reins and make you go in straight lines and turns where I want you to go. I want to just see how you feel right now and see if they want to turn back, see if they're just frozen because they're gazing, somewhere else, or they're gazing where they don't want to go when they're nervous. And just use those reins to free them up and allow them to turn back a little, and then let them tick that off their bucket list. And then soon enough, they'll start to search outside and start to seek new directions.
Okay, the next question is from Naja, and it's a continuation with her work that she's been doing with the Spanish mare. So just for people who have been following the podcast, just a refresher, the Spanish mare was quite carrying a lot of tension, and Naja's been trying to move her arm up and down while she's riding her, and she's noticing that that is causing quite a lot of anxiety. Well, it's been going really well. She was trotting freely and steering nicely until last week. She actually got bucked off. What happened was that she was just walking along and someone moved a chair. They think that's what it was that triggered it, sent her into a bucking fit. She came off. Now, she doesn't feel that she's actually quite a particularly spooky mare. She has been in situations with tractors and things like that around, and she's been fine. So the reaction, and it was quite a quick reaction because the reins weren't, she didn't feel a lot of tension in the reins before this happened. So she feels that it was just she sort of escalated to this point very, very quickly. And when she got back on her, she was like a firecracker. She got her through it with lots of steering and changing of the eyes. She was able to blow out. They finished on a good note, but she's just wondering, any ideas, Mark?
Yeah, there's a little bit more in there, basically. There's a fellow I worked with some years ago, and they used to work up in the, he was from the Northern Territory and used to work with a fellow, and he was a contract musterer in the Northern Territory, and there was a mare that this contractor kept on board, and it might go for a week or two, and then all of a sudden it'd just drop its head and buck, and everyone that worked on that sort of contract mustering plant was quite nervous about that horse. And basically, because every now and again it'd just drop its head and buck someone off. But the contractor kept it on board because it was a really good horse. It was sound, and it'd do so many weeks without that happening. So that's the sort of, I guess, the effect of underlying pressure is you don't really know when it's going to happen or what's going to happen, but there is something in there where the horse is carrying that anxiety and can't tip it out, and all it takes is a catalyst or a trigger to make the horse explode. Like it's just the last clinic I did, there was a kid's pony there, and long reining it really made it more frightened than the other horses. But you would think, well, it's a kid's pony, it sort of copes with all this stuff, and then this is making it really, really frightened. And I think with your horse, Naja, is I know you're doing the right things, and I know, just putting your arm out, steering with that other rein so the horse is bending in and you can flap your hands and things like that. She's starting to get used to that, but it's almost like she has a bit of trouble processing all these things, and she might be softening and processing to that, and then all of a sudden something else will interrupt her and she'll get a spook. So I get the feeling that there's still tension in there when you're steering her. I think there's still tension when you're and though she might feel a little soft in the rein, I think you might have to ramp it up a little bit in when it's a bit quieter around you, and just really find out how she's doing with, you flapping your arms and stuff like that when you're bending her. And, if you take on the reins and you ask her to do something, if she's really, really comfortable and she's sort of soaking up with what you're doing and okay with it, but also in a state where she's sort of taking on the environment around her. And I think what I would probably look into doing is really looking at how comfortable she is with the things that she was scared of with you, because what the I guess the worrying point for me is she didn't just spin around and look at the chair. So if she was really okay with you and okay with the saddle and okay with everything that was happening on top of her, chances are if that chair overwhelmed her, she would have just spun around and looked at the chair. But she didn't do that. She went off in a bucking fit. Now, a bucking fit sometimes more tells me that the horse is still having trouble with what's going on over the top of it and around it, in the sense of what you're doing and so there's still a certain amount of worry in her cup from carrying you and carrying the pressure that you provide, and throwing your arms around and things like that. So I would really look at bringing her up to her threshold a little bit, and then down again, up to her threshold and down a little bit, a little more, and just really test out if she can really come down and cope and get really soft with what you're doing. Because I still think there's she hasn't quite really said, I'm okay with this. And I think that you've got to just feel deeper into yourself, really, really look into what you're seeing and feeling in her, and trying to assess is she really soft with what I'm doing and really cool with that? Or is she still just like every time you get on her, do you have to go through the same process of bending her and bumping your leg and things like that? Because if you're still having to go through that same process every day just to get her into a good place, then it's telling you that she's still not okay with a lot of the things that are happening on top of her. So I think you've really got to work on more of those things, bringing her up and bringing her down, and just look a little harder into what you're seeing. And if you feel a little more brace, maybe put a little more bend in her and maybe get her to turn and do a couple of other things. And it's sort of a bit hard to explain, but you're just trying to just take her a little further, you know, than what she's used to, bring her back, take her a little further than what she's used to, bring her back, and just see how she copes with that. And then when you bring her back and you relax, then all those things that you were doing that was sort of like small things, she won't be so worried about.
Is
yeah,
that
just
going,
keep looking into that.
Is that going into a danger zone, doing that sort of thing? You know, someone
Yeah,
like
you're going
yourself.
close to her danger zone. You're going a bit closer to her threshold and then coming back, because once she gets a little used to the slightly extra scary bit and then comes back off that, as long as she's thinking and moving and you see her still kind of analysing things, not just freezing up and coping with it, I mean thinking, and you can then when you go back to a sort of a medium amount of pressure, she goes, well, I cope with that bit more pressure. That medium amount of pressure is quite easy. And then all of a sudden she relaxes more to you just being up there, because that extra pressure, she got through it and came out of it. So anything under that starts to become easier. Whereas sometimes we might just get to a certain point and go, I'm bumping like this and I'm steering like this, and we don't do any more, but we haven't really got the horse to really think and worry and then brought them out of it. They're just kind of on this kind of slightly worried sort of, they're in this slightly worried sort of feeling.
Mm. And so the key thing then is keep her moving. I noticed you said keep her moving, you know, none of us standing still. And we'll slow it down perhaps.
Keep her moving, keep her thinking, and yeah, you know, get to a stage that you can bang your leg out of the blue and don't have a rhythm. Like, you want to know that you're safe not to have a rhythm on them. So you can bang your leg out of the blue, you can sort of put your hand out over there, you can bang your helmet quickly, or, you know, do all that and get her used to that. Because she had a bucking fit, it just shows me that she's kind of bottling up the worry, and the worry still from what's happening on top of her and around her. Because if most horses that have let go of all that worry, they just would have spun around and went, oh, the chair just moved, I'm scared, but they wouldn't have been bothered about, you know, bucking off, because there's nothing on them that makes them want to buck off, because they just feel like they're free.
Good luck with that, Naja. Keep us posted, I think. So Carrie's in a similar situation, and she's got a mare that she's brought back into work, and she's looking for this connection. So she's sort of gone back to the groundwork. She's noticed that she's really braced in the reins, and she's been doing quite a few different things. I'm just going to run through them briefly, because she just wants to check, is she on the right track, and should she be continuing doing this, or should she be doing more? So what she's been doing is she's been just getting her to move off her legs and stay with her, and softening at the direct reins and the backup. And when she destinates, she's using turning to reset her. She's spending a lot of time just sitting on her and letting her connect and empty some worry out of her cup before each small forward movement. She's getting she's getting off frequently when she does get the connection. She's giving her time with her on the ground in the saddle and then rebounding. They're only doing a walk. They're not doing very many steps before resetting. So is this okay? Is this the right sort of way to go? And just a little note there that she is a restart after a really bad start with a previous owner.
Yep. No, Carrie, I know your mare because I remember her from the How Long Clinic and how worried she is about pressure. So you know, I can understand, you know, she's a bit like a coiled spring. So what you got to think about is, first of all, and just at the clinic that I've just done, you know, there was a lady with a bit of a coiled spring horse that I remember meeting in another clinic, and she's worked really hard, and the mare's starting to, you know, be okay with her. So we can start sort of stepping up the pressure a little bit. But there's that sort of point there, and it's a bit like Naja's question about her horse that sort of went into a bucking fit. It's like you can sort of get to this point, and then there's all of a sudden a point where you have to sort of step them up a little bit. So the few things that I would definitely do with her, knowing her, is everything you're doing is right. And I would continue with what you're doing, allowing her processing time. But there's going to be a point that you're going to have to sort of work out the things that she knows and being able to speed them up a little bit. So if that's steering to the direct rein, if that's a backup, if that's, moving forward to your legs. So, what you don't want to be doing is going to a stage where she's trotting and cantering, or just even trotting, and you haven't shown her that she can go from a standstill to a fast walk quite quickly with a kind of a quick squeeze of the leg, and she's completely okay with that. So instead of sort of pushing her faster and things like that, I would just work on the things she knows and kind of ramp them up a little bit. So I'll explain it. So and the other part of the question, you said, should I let her travel a little bit more? Yes, you've got to get to a stage now that she can travel and move, and you can just loosen up and just let her, in a sort of a quiet space, like a smaller yard where she's not got too much space. Is just let her travel, let her just move on loose rein, walk and relax and things like that. So yes, she has to travel more, but what I'd be really working on is that she can, or you can ask her to, okay, squeeze up to that walk, now stop. Now squeeze up to that walk, now stop. And she's completely comfortable with that. But you're not going to take her to a walk or a trot or you're not going to take her past her processing speed. So, if she's only offered you a medium walk, well, don't take her past the medium walk. Just take her from, say, a standstill or a super slow walk up to her walk, but try and get her to do it quicker than she did it last time. So she starts to go, oh yeah, I can speed up to that. Yeah, okay, I'm okay with those legs, and I'm not frightened of them. And then the other thing I would do a lot of before you really start to get her moving out is if you can get her and bend her around using your indirect rein and just wait on it with a fairly tight bend and just see how much tension she's got, see how much she feels like a coiled spring, and hold that rein in there and until she can sort of relax and release that hindquarter nice and soft, and do that on both sides. So from a standstill, don't maybe yes, some horses I encourage to do a hindquarter yield from a walk just to get them free moving and stuff. But with her, you'd want to be able to take a bend on her, lift that inside rein up from your belly button up to your chin, and you'll feel pressure in there, and she'll be pushing a little bit. But I would like to know, and I'd like you to know, that she can just release and relax and just move the hindquarter around and softly follow the inside rein around without any bind or pressure or anxiety. If she starts to fight and panic because of that bind, well, chances are when you get going forward a bit faster and put her in a bit of a tight turn or a faster turn, there'll be that pressure and worry in there. So it's a really good way of just getting to loosen up through the whole body. And just going back to actually Naja's horse, I didn't mention that for your question about, flapping your arm and your horse had the bucking fit, but just what I said about Carrie's horse, I'd also send that back to that question and say to Naja, that's another exercise you really want to get good so the horse can really be comfortable at loosening up and relaxing that hindquarter and just moving it out. So you want to add that on top of your direct rein that you've been teaching your horse. So, you want to be able to take the direct rein and then into your steering, you want to be able to take that direct rein and that indirect rein up a little quicker so the horse can go, yeah, I can find that. I can get myself out of trouble in a bit more of a hurry. And then where that's going to help you is when the horse gets in a bit of a panic or gets a little tired, and you do pick up a rein a bit reactively. We don't always want to be reactive, but sometimes we just can't help it. That if you pick it up in a little hurry, the horse is going to go, I can cope with that. Whereas if you ride them real quiet, and just work just under their threshold all the time, and all of a sudden something goes wrong, then you put a little excess pressure on them, and they're not ready and set up for that. So, if you could really sort of just step her up a little bit. on those things that I just said, I think you know, then you could get back to me in a little while and say, yeah, well, she's actually starting to sort of become a lot softer, and yeah.
Great. That's really interesting stuff. Thank you very much, Mark. So you're in Victoria, heading off to Canberra next.
Yeah, I'll be on the way to Canberra tomorrow. Got a couple of clinics there. Got a 2-day and then 3-day clinic, and so we've got a pop-up clinic in Canberra due to the flooding. So, you know, as everyone knows pretty well, the whole east coast of it, well, not all the east coast, but, you know, New South Wales coast up through to Queensland has had some intensive flooding. And so one of the venues, they've still got to get a boat to get across their little river that runs in front of their house. So, you know, so they've got to get groceries in and out via boat, and the only way they can get in and out is via boat. So
crazy.
So yeah, I don't think I'll be getting there for that clinic. So we've had to cancel that. But anyone in Canberra, there's a few spots still left.
Very good. And then heading up into New South Wales for some 6-day clinics, which will be nice. Thank you very much, Mark.
Yeah.
Safe travels tomorrow.
Thanks, Jenny. Thank you, everybody.